I believe we're ready. Pickle, let's go to the hotline. And we are so pleased and honored to be joined today by Julie Carlson and Becky Roach. Those names may not mean a whole lot to you, so let me put a little bit more on it. Formerly known as Julie Campbell and Becky Campbell, Dave Campbell's daughters. Julie and Becky, thank you so much for joining me.
Glad to be here.
Hey, we really appreciate you guys taking a little bit of time with us. And Julie, I'd like to start with you. We're here today celebrating your father's 100th birthday and the legacy that he has left behind. Maybe a funny question for you, but like when you think of your father growing up, like we think of him as like the editor and the writer and this legend. What do you think of when you think of your father, Dave?
I really think of just the everyday things that, he read to us. He loved homemade ice cream, so I think about the summers where he made homemade ice cream, the childhood trips we took. Just the day-to-day things that I don't think people see. We never really thought of him as a legend or anything because I don't think he thought of himself that way. I know he didn't think of himself that way. He was a sports writer. That's what he did. He loved stories, reading them, writing them, whatever.
And Becky, I kind of want to ask you a similar question. Growing up, did you realize how big of a deal your father was, or was it just, that's just Dad?
He was just Dad. I did not realize. We lived in Waco our whole lives. He was sports editor of the Waco paper, and so people in Waco knew him because of that, and they would comment on articles he had written in the paper. But I never thought anyone outside of Waco really knew who he was or was on their radar or anything. So he was Dad, and just, he was a local figure, but I never imagined statewide at all. And he was just so humble. He would be probably embarrassed that we were doing this today.
It's funny. It's funny you mention that because I was thinking that same thing. And Julie, this kind of leads me to my next question. Is when I think of your father and in my interactions with Dave Campbell and in talking with people who knew him, the word that keeps coming back is like humble and a guy who wanted to tell the story but not be the story. And I'm curious if that was your experience as well growing up, and if that was the kind of thing that he taught you growing up in the Campbell household.
Oh, absolutely. He thought other people's stories were the fascinating things. He would have said his was nothing, which is completely wrong. But yes, he was an incredibly kind man. He had time for if anybody, dropped by his lunch table to visit, he would take the time to visit, no matter what. He was just incredibly kind, and he loved to talk to people.
Julie Carlson and Becky Roach joining us here on Texas Football Today. And Becky, there's another, I think, really important figure in the story of Dave Campbell and of your father, and that's of your mother, Reba. And I know we talked about her when she passed away in January 2020. I know how important she is to the story that we're telling about Dave Campbell and this legend that he is. Can you tell us a little bit about your mother and the special role, not only that she played in Texas football, but in your life?
Well, yes. So she was also a journalist and writer, so they had that in common, and that was a huge bond. So I have to say, they're couples that you see that they loved each other their whole life. My parents were teammates, and they were soulmates, and they really worked so well together and played off of each other. And truly, my mother probably deserves the MVP because she would go with Daddy to all the football games, and he sat in the press box, and she sat in the stands. And she sat through all kinds of weather and conditions, and I never heard her complain one time about it. It was just what she wanted to do, to be there with him and to support him. And so that also meant that Julie and I went to a lot of games. And I remember one particular Cotton Bowl, it was so icy cold that we finally, at we at halftime agreed that we could all go sit in the car for halftime. So we did that. But she was just such a support for him, and he was so proud of her. He told the story at one event that she pinned the yellow rose on Earl Campbell before he went into the Heisman Trophy ceremony to accept it. And he was just so proud of her for that, just that tiny act of just being there in kindness. And so they were such an example for us. They were married 70 years and just loved and adored each other. Can I tell one more story? So
Please.
This was later in their lives, and we were in church, and my mother had some strokes, and she lost her ability to speak. But we were sitting in church, and I looked over, my dad's starting to doze off, and he's kind of nodding, and all of a sudden I see this elbow come across, and she just elbowed him in the side. I thought she might not be able to speak, but she knows exactly what's going on.
She knew how to get his attention.
It's a cute relationship.
It's remarkable to hear these stories about Dave Campbell, a guy that we know as kind of boss around here. You know, the guy who helped kind of lay the foundation around here. And Julie, I'm curious from your perspective. Was there a moment or was there a time where it kind of dawned on you of, my dad's a big deal. My dad's a bigger deal than maybe he's been letting on for these years. Was there a moment or a time where something dawned on you and go, wait a second, like, how do you know my dad?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question to answer. I think it kind of was floating there, in our mind, but I think I have to say it really was his death that it really came, just punched me in the face kind of thing. Just the outpouring of love, of respect, and so forth. I think it was seeing, the acknowledgement of him at the Texas high school football championships, and that they left a seat open for him at the Sugar Bowl, and mentioning him on game day. It was that kind of thing that I really had no inkling before then, I don't think.
And finally, Becky, this is obviously it's a big day around here for Dave Campbell's Texas football and what we do here. And I know that in his later life, he wasn't as involved in the magazine as he was, whenever he was 35 and putting it together on his kitchen table with your mom in Hollis Biddle. But from your perspective, can you tell us a little bit about his feeling about his legacy and his feeling about especially this magazine and what it means to this state? Can you tell us a little bit about maybe how he viewed what this magazine has become now, this phenomenon across the state?
Greg, truthfully, I don't think he ever realized what an impact it had. It was his vision and dream, and he loved it because he wanted to promote Texas high school football and Texas college football, and he did do the Dallas Cowboys, but I don't think I know he didn't. He never did it because he wanted fame. He just did it because he loved what he was doing and he believed in it. And he was very happy, humble, kind man, and he just never looked for fame at all. I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly, but it was just a labor of love. And I know he would be so proud of what the magazine and the staff and what y'all are doing today, because it just carried on his vision and dream. But he did it he thought it was a service he could provide for the state of Texas and for high school players and college players.
Julie Carlson and Becky Roach, Dave Campbell's daughters. Julie, Becky, thank you so much for joining us. It really is, I mean this on behalf of myself and on behalf of the entire staff here, it is our honor to carry on your father's legacy. and to do right by him. I've said this before when he was still alive. I would say that I don't actually care what people think of the magazine as long as a 90-something-year-old man in Waco likes it. And I still feel that way. I still feel that way. And so we are so grateful to you, not only for your time, but also just your support in helping keep his legacy alive and supporting us in keeping his legacy alive.
Well, thank you, Greg.
Thank you so much, Greg. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. There they go. Julie Carlson and Becky Roach, Dave Campbell's daughters, join us here on Texas Football Today. Follow us on Twitter at DCTF. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Dave Campbell's. Follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/Dave Campbell's. And, of course, see us at texasfootball.com.